23 home league games. Unbeaten for Leeds, not anymore. Janusz, Spurs extend their unbeaten run to 7, move up to second in the table. Quietly efficient performance today. They weren't great, but that's a big 3 points on the road.
Yeah, quite efficient, you said, but quietly, Spurs are in the second place, right? And there's not much to talk about. I don't think in any of the games they've done something spectacular, right? But they have been good on the road. Wins. I think Man City, obviously, they do that. They seem to do that all the time. West Ham now at Leeds, which, as you've mentioned, is not easy over a year without a loss at home in the league. So, look, Thomas Frank, I think we've talked about it. He's making these Spurs, I think, at the very least, resilient on both sides of the ball. What I liked about the game, just quickly, early on is after the goal, they retreated, right? They stayed in the game and they found the second goal. And you just have a feeling that the Spurs of old on their bench obviously would still be pretty wide open, and who knows where that game would have gone. So a great 3 points.
Sam, what did we see today from this one? My perspective was kind of like little brother, big brother, and that big brother always just had that kind of
Mark,
little brother arm's length. And Leeds tried hard, but it was more perspiration than inspiration. What do you think?
I think the Leeds game plan was pretty good. They set themselves up in order to try and snatch the ball and try and create chances, maybe using the counter press as their kind of biggest weapon. So Anton Stack playing quite high up and trying to nick the ball. Noah Okafor. There was a lot of work rate in this Leeds performance. And they did actually furnish their striker with chances, but unfortunately there's that big one for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which sailed way over the bar, and that's obviously going to be a bit of a concern. Leeds' big problem here is they didn't get to score that second goal. I thought they were very good value to go 1-1, very good value indeed, but it never quite felt like they were fully in it for that second goal. They couldn't quite create that chance. And the longer the game went on, actually, I thought the less likely they were to score. And that sounds like a strange thing to say when they brought on lots of attacking ammunition. But, at the end of the game, you've got 3 strikers on the pitch. And if you've got 3 strikers on the pitch, you're probably short in other areas, maybe in the creativity stakes, which is why they end up just sending the ball into the box over and over. And I don't know about you guys, but for those final 6 or 7 minutes of injury time, it didn't really feel like Leeds were actually going to score, did it? They didn't feel genuinely threatening to Spurs.
No, it felt like that kind of FA Cup tie when the I'm not saying they're a smaller side, but they're trying to find a way and you just shell balls forward. You can kind of sum this game up in a way by strength and depth off the bench, Janusz. We're going to take you through the subs that Leeds made and the subs that Spurs made. And there's a lot more quality from Spurs with regards to who they were able to bring on. So Harrison, Tanaka, Nemeka, Piru, and Justin coming on for Leeds. And for Spurs, Sarr, Richarlison, Danso, and Brennan Johnson didn't even start the game today. So, look, Spurs get the 3 points. Teams will slip up at Leeds. They're a good side. I think they might be okay this season. But what's the difference? What have we seen? You touched on this earlier. Yes, he brought on more defensive players and shut up shop near the end. But overall, what's the difference between an Ange Postecoglou Spurs in the league and a Thomas Frank Spurs in the league?
Well, I mean, it's easy to go straight into that stability, right? In terms of what's important in the game and phases of the game, set pieces and all that, we could go. But I just think that he also showing faith to his players, right? There's some injuries, but, look at the Spurs team, right? Showing faith in Matis Tel, and he scores a goal, right? Richarlison obviously was rotated probably because of Euro, but when I look at this team and what they have and haven't shown yet, I don't want to say it's scary, but it may be. I mean, they scored 13 goals, second best in the league right now. And Kudus gets his first goal for the club in general, right? Matis first in the Premier, Matis Tel first in the Premier League. We haven't really seen goals from Xavi Simons just yet. We haven't seen Solanke. We haven't even seen Kolo Muani just yet, right? So the faith that he shows in his players, I think he makes everybody feels very, very important. Some of it is by default, and I don't even want to mention, the Kulusevskis and Madison. Madison's going to be out for a while now. So I think that is the importance because I think you could say that Spurs have depth. They've had that before. They have just as many injuries right now as they had under Ange. So I think it's that balance and that freshness that's genuine from Thomas Frank, right? Because I think with Ange, he got himself lost towards the end there, and he knew it. And we sort of see that from Enge right now at Nottingham Forest as well.
Okay, Sam, can Spurs be less Spursy this season? The reason I ask that is they had a brilliant win at Man City, and then they lost at Bournemouth. Lost at home to Bournemouth by 1-0, and you're thinking, same old Spurs. But since then, unbeaten. There's something different. Is there more of a steal in this side?
I am not quite willing to jump to that argument just yet. There's been a lot of positivity about Spurs here so far, but we are not that far removed from a genuinely atrocious performance at Bodo Glimt. And of course, last weekend's Wolves at home, which, every game in the Premier League is tough, but if you're lining up a game as a bit of a banker, to get a point out of that from a very, very late Joao Palhinha goal doesn't feel great. So I know a lot of Spurs fans who are still feeling a little bit on the fence about how this team are actually playing right now. It's good to get results when you're not quite performing at your peak. And it's good to believe that actually when the performances do click into gear, wow, could they really go on a hell of a run of results? But there's something I'm still holding back a little bit here, guys, maybe a little bit more than you guys. And I think watching them in the Arctic Circle, how they got a point, I don't know. They got outplayed from start to finish. I can't watch that and then just immediately jump on board with them. I'm pumping the brakes.
100%. And Janusz, they could have been 4-0 down at half-time if Hauge and others had their shooting boots on in the Arctic Circle. Then
many teams have in Bodo on the plastic pitch. I mean, I'm not making excuses.
I get that, but as Sam said, look, against Wolves, that's Spursy. That's dropping points. We can look at this whatever way you want. You can be pro Spurs and say second in the table, just the one defeat against Bournemouth. You can look at it, as Sam says, the performance against Bodo, that performance against Bournemouth and against Wolves. Is the truth somewhere in the middle here?
Yeah, I mean, I get you, Sam, and but I could say that about any team, right? Everybody's dropping points, and I'm gonna stick. I don't know how far they're gonna go. I'm just gonna stick with the fact that so many key players are still not there, right? And they're finding a way to get results, and getting those results away from home is very, very important. And as I've said, I think. I'll wait. When I see Kolomwani, when I see Kudus, and we see glimpses game in and game out. We still see those glimpses from Xavi Simons. So I think there's a lot to go to with the Spurs team, with a manager that's, I think, in general, a little bit pragmatic, which is probably the best thing that could have happened to Spurs, right? Because in terms of going forward, these players will eventually go, no matter what Thomas Frank says, right? I mean, players on the pitch, if you have that much quality and going forward, they have quality, we know, I mean, they're very well balanced. So my only point is that, they haven't been at their best yet, and the best is yet to come, because I think there's real quality on this team.
I think we need to see a proper body of work, Sam, before we can kind of say, yeah, this or yeah, that. Just looking at their next games coming up. Villa at home, Monaco away Champions League, Everton away Premier League, League Cup tie, who cares? Chelsea at home, Copenhagen, they should win that, but Man United and then Arsenal away. So then a trip to PSG. So once you've got a proper body of work, I think we'll be in a better position to kind of tell mid to late November how seriously, rather than if we should take Spurs seriously.
Yeah, you reference the fact that they've just moved into second in the table, temporarily perhaps, but they've moved into second. I'm completely ignoring the table right now because last week Villa were getting relegated and then they won a game and now they're 5 points off the Champions League. So right now the table is a funny thing and I'm paying no attention to it. I'm looking at the performances. I just listening to that list of games you read out. And to be honest with you, while that sounds like a really scary run, there's a lot of really, really strong opponents there. And in a case where the opponent isn't at elite level like Everton, it's away at their new stadium, which is a real task right now. It sounds like a tough run. But Janusz, you just nailed it. You're talking about Thomas Frank as a more reactive and pragmatic manager, someone who is very good at coaching a team against the ball. He probably looks at these games and he goes, I can win all these. I can win them all. And so if they get through that run, I mean, why not start dreaming at that point? It probably still will be the Wolves at home that trips you up because that's the Thomas Frank style. That's what we saw at Brentford for 3, 4, 5 years is superb against the ball, really good at finding those minor details and those little wins and pluses that get you over the line in those scenarios. Can they do it where they have to be the proactive force? They will grow into the season on that, they will need to grow into the season on that. Otherwise, there may be questions coming out the other end.
Are you trying to tell Sunderland fans, Bournemouth fans, Tottenham fans, and fans of Heart of Midlothian who are top in Scotland that we shouldn't look at the table right now, Sam?
I'm saying enjoy it for what it is, and especially, let me speak directly to Sunderland fans. My God, enjoy every single second of it in the same way that Crystal Palace have done so for the last year or so. But yeah, maybe the table is a bit of a lie right now at points.
Yeah, well, it's the hope that kills you. That's the worst thing about football. It's what you might get. It's like an episode of Bullseye for those of you in the UK, and you don't get 101 with 6 starts. Here's what you could have won. Leeds United. Now, Janusz, momentum from last season. Then they go into this season, a couple of defeats. Arsenal away, anything you get from that's a bonus. Fulham away was tight. They lost by a goal to nil. Haven't lost any other games. Some good results. Good win at Wolves. Point against Newcastle at home. They would take 17th right now. What do you think they're capable of at their best this season, but also at their worst this season? Where do you think they're going to end up?
Yeah, look, I mean, first and foremost is, get rid of the narrative of that yo-yo team, right? Find stability, and you can say that about Leeds, and you can say that about their manager as well, right? Because he's been there as well with Norwich and in the past as well. So I think, look, it's been a pretty good start in terms of points, but you can say that about all the promoted teams right now. We've seen that before, where you kind of get in and get that adrenaline and get that great start, and then things are starting to fall off when the games come thick and fast. So I think get rid of that and just continue to be at home. We've mentioned, I mean, this is the first loss in over a year right now, but I think, it's a 12th man. I mean, anybody that's been in that ground will know exactly what we're talking about. Maybe today we didn't hear it all that much, although towards the end they came close with those 2 chances from Pirro and Strauch. So I think if they continue to play at home and win games, I mean, that's half the process right there. And, scoring obviously too, right? I mean, you look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I mean, such a talented player, but he hardly ever scores. I mean, I try to cheer him on and all that, and he's had his chances again today, couple, 2 or 3 very, very good ones. And I think if he gets consistent, or they get that from somebody else somewhere, consistently scoring goals, I think that lifts the entire team. Other than that, there's just one goal, and then to stay up. Anyhow they can find it, because and I'm not talking just one season. They've done that over the course of 2 or 3 years, and maybe you can build on that.
I'm glad you brought up Calvert-Lewin. I would have lost money on the fact he's still only 28, Sam. I thought he was older than that. He was at Everton for 9 years. Can he recapture the best of what we saw from him at Everton? Will it just take time, or is it a case of get as much as you can? He got that equalising goal at Wolves in the 3-1 win. What side of the fence are you on for this one?
Unfortunately, I feel like I'm shading towards the doubtful side of the fence here, because it's just been so long now since we've seen him at his absolute best, and it's continually referenced that he scored 16, 17 goals at Premier League level in one season, and that was his best. That was a long time ago now, wasn't it? It's frustratingly so, and it was in a team, if I'm not mistaken, that was managed by Carlo Ancelotti, and his chances were laid up by James Rodriguez and Luca Dean. So that is incredible, like silver service, and he doesn't have that. He's also had a lot of injury problems to deal with, and he's like really lacking confidence these days. You can see. I mean, I don't know if you saw his debut in the cup, but he came on and missed a handful of amazing chances in the space of about 5 minutes, and he missed his penalty as well. So it's almost like started really well for him in terms of kicking on and finding the net a couple of times and getting that momentum. So unfortunately, I kind of don't think he's ever going to get back to that. You've surprised me with his age there. I would have put him at over 30 just because he's been around for a very long time. But the further you move away from that golden period, and it's been far too long now, the less I have faith in it really being recaptured. For Leeds, it's a case of, can Noah Okafor chip in? Can Brendan Aaronson chip in? They've really indexed on set pieces this season. They've brought in proper set piece specialists. They've recruited a team of actual giants, really. More than six of their summer signings are 6'2" or taller, and some of them are 6'4" and 6'5". Anton Stack, set piece specialist, these kind of things. They're going for that. They're not hanging that hat on Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and that's absolutely the right call. They've tried to bring goals to the rest of the team and find those edges. Probably the edges that Thomas Frank, we praise him for bringing to Brentford.
Janusz, I know you love your European football. You especially love Serie A. You would have seen a lot of Noah Okafor at Milan. What does the Swiss bring to this Leeds side that they maybe didn't have before?
Well, we saw that. I mean, his directness, his ability to take, players on. I mean, that's something that, strength. He's got much stronger than when he was at there. Same, because we haven't even mentioned. I mean, they have a couple players in those wide areas, right? Because Nyonto wasn't even here. Then, James is another one, so they have a little bit of pace there too. But if you look at Okafor when you watch him for club and country, I think he's that sort of a player that I think in the Premier League will succeed. I actually liked what he did, in the first half. A lot of the times he was very, I think time, that's what he needs first and foremost. I'm already pretty happy with the way he looked, but they have enough of those players when they get him back to sustain themselves in the Premier League. I just worry what happens to a club like Leeds with that narrative, because I think psychology in this game is very important, right? And just as much as we're saying, well, this is different with all these new teams, right? We'll see what Sunderland does now against Manchester United. They're probably going there thinking they're going to get 3 points, and they may. But given another couple of months, and how do they react when the reality of old sets in, where you lose 2 or 3 in a row, right? That's the issue. But I like this Leeds team much better than I've liked some of the ones in the past.
Just before we wrap up the Leeds Spurs game, staying with you, Janusz, I read an interesting quote from Daniel Farke talking about Brendan Aaronson. I think it was last week. He was just saying, lay off the criticism for him. His time will come. He started wide right today. From a US narrative and perspective, how important a part of the US squad should he be ahead of next year's World Cup?
Well, I mean, he's fighting for, I don't want to say for his life. It almost seems like he's going to have to do that for both Leeds and country, right? I mean, you could see how easily he can get away from even the best players. And he's done that today. I don't know if you remember that one time against Romero in the first half where he just turned on a dime and all that. But he's just not strong enough physically. I mean, as many times as I've seen him do a good job in getting away from players, I mean, he's on the ground more than anybody I saw today. And he's that type of a player, but sometimes I think you have to understand what it is to sustain yourself in a league like Premier League. And for the national team, that's a little bit different, I think, because he's the type of player. I mean, on that goal, obviously he played a big role in that, right? I mean, that save and that quick reaction. So he's been good. But I think, I've always felt that he needs to be strong enough, or stronger, I should say.
Let's end with Spurs, Sam, and I'll give you the final word, given that you tried to douse the enthusiasm of Tottenham supporters. Now, I know a lot of Spurs fans as well, and they've not had much to cheer about. And I totally get where you're going. You're the guy. You're the sensible one in the room. But if they can dream, okay, what should be the height of their ambitions in those dreams? Are we talking potentially good enough to be top 4 this season, or are we just saying, as we would say in Scotland, cock-canny a wee bit here? Look, Spurs are Spurs, and just when you think things are going well, they'll throw a spanner in the works. You can have the final say on expectations for Spurs this season.
Well, look, I've been a little bit down maybe compared to you guys on what I've seen for Spurs, but I agree with the idea that there's a ceiling for Spurs here, and it's pretty high. 2 parts to that. One being, look at the talent they have. Look at the players that need to be still brought in. As Janusz mentions, someone like Kulusevski can come and elevate this team even further. Xavi Simons will presumably get better and better, and he was quite bright today in moments, and he has that kind of Martin Odegaard pass on the edge of the box that no one in the stadium saw but him. These are all really positive things, and we know that Frank can coach a reactive team, a defence and an approach. So that's great. That's part 1. Part 2 is 4th is just wide open for someone. I mean, it's not like we're all looking at this Premier League and saying, well, there's clearly 4 really strong teams. There's 4 teams that are just better than everyone else. There's 2, possibly 3, if City are City, but who knows? The 4th one is wide open. Most people put Chelsea in their preseason predictions. Chelsea are not looking good, have already suffered a series of injuries, and the Club World Cup fitness hangover looks like it's going to be pretty strong. The door is open for Spurs, for anybody, but especially for Spurs, because they already have the talent and the platform. So that's why I would say that they can absolutely dream for top four, because the door is open.
Yeah, and you can have the last word on Leeds. Sorry, you want a quick word about Spurs?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not letting Spurs away. I haven't named them champions, by the way, in the beginning. I agree with that. But there's enough. I mean, there's enough. They have to be top four with that talent. I mean, look deep, and we don't know if they're going to get everybody. But there's always that assumption that you're going to get your best players, like Kolomwani. I think we've mentioned that as well. But if you look at that team defensively, World Cup champions, right? Udogie is back right now. He's had a great season before. You have Pora, you have Spence. I mean, in every position, they are too deep in quality. I mean, if I made an argument here that they're deeper than Chelsea, I don't think I get a fight in talent, right? Not, so Manchester City, I think they're getting better, but in terms of hunger, what they used to have, I mean, they're not convincing as well. So, I mean, aside from Arsenal and Liverpool right now, talent-wise, right? I mean, they're the third best. And you can say that, okay, this is the first season Thomas Frank, he deserves more. I mean, if they somehow don't make it, I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, Thomas Frank did a terrible job if they finish first or anything like that. And sometimes it does take another season, right, when you're absolutely healthy. But look, I mean, they're top four. This is not dreaming. I mean, they ought to be thinking realistically here with this sort of start that we need to be top four and nothing else is good enough.
Oh, the year doesn't end in one, so they're probably not going to win a cup this year. That's one for the teenagers. Finally, Leeds, Janusz. Will they be okay this season?
Yeah, that's too early. I'm much more, forceful, as you could tell, about Spurs than to figure out what Leeds are going to do, right? Because, there's a reason that these promoted teams struggle. And at this point, I can't say that Leeds are staying up for sure, but the signs are pretty good. I think the signs are pretty good. They got to take advantage of this decent start.
Yes or no, Sam? Do Leeds stay up?
Yes. I picked them to stay up in pre-season, and I'm not going to change it.
One of those days. I don't know if I've ever had a guest on ESPN FC that is just answered with one word and then not said.
I've had him down. Before the season, I've had Leeds going down. Just so.
Not anymore. Keep him up.
Transparently, no, I don't know yet. But to be transparent, I've had him going down before the season.